Be a youth work conference if we didn't finish with a panel of experts, and the expert of the experts, or the chair of the experts, is Chifundo Zingunde, who is climate change advocate. He's part of the Scotland-Malawi partnership, and he is on the 2050 climate group Young Leaders Project. So over to you, Chifundo. You are chairing the next session, so I'll leave it to you to introduce your fellow speakers. You're just on mute at the moment. It's a mistake. We all do at some point. So over to you.
Yes, indeed. My name is Chifundo Zingunde from the southern part of Africa, Malawi, Mzuzu city to be specific. I welcome you to this session of National Youth Work Conference 2021 panel discussion. I have 4 people. These people are cream de la cream, experts of the topic at hand. So to introduce Jenni Barr, she is a youth and children development officer for ScoreScotland, and Julie Beckett, CLD development officer, Education Scotland. We also have Peter Higgins, professor of outdoor environmental and sustainability education at the University of Edinburgh. And of course, he is also a director for Edinburgh Global Environmental Society Academy. And the last one on the list is Jenni Snell, who is the Senior Development Officer for YouthLink Scotland. So to begin with, the first question, we cannot dodge that because we are heading towards COP26. So COP26 is indeed a very important conference, but one thing that people are asking out there, one thing that people want to know, if the legacy will go beyond. So here is my first question to my panelists. COP26 is important, like I said earlier, but now in terms of future decision making, how does the legacy look like? And how can youth go beyond COP26 to leave the legacy and continue to do the good work to end the climate crisis? So the first one to tackle this will be Jenni Barr. Over to you, Jenni.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you very much. So I'm here today representing ScoreScotland. So we are an anti-racism organisation based in southwest Edinburgh. And I would say that personally, the work that I see at the grassroots level, I think is so important. And I think COP26, of course, we're so happy to have it in Scotland. But for us, the actual work that we do on the ground with the young people, we are going to be continuing. It's something that we are so passionate about because ultimately it is our communities, Black and minority ethnic communities, that are going to face the most severe effects of the climate crisis. So for us, definitely, this is a piece of work. So whether COP26 is happening in Scotland, whether it's happening elsewhere, it's something that we are going to continue regardless. We are really passionate about justice as well. So not just looking at climate change, but also climate justice and how racism and capitalism, colonialism all go hand in hand. And that is not going to change whether we have COP26 or not. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Before Julie Beckett comes in, let me remind you, my participants, that you can also drop your questions and comments in the chat box. They will get to me and I'll read your comments and pose the questions to the panelists. A reminder to the panelists, keep your explanation short, simple, and of course, sweet. Julie Beckett, do you think, what do you think you should do to go beyond COP26 in order for them to leave a legacy? What do you think?
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the introduction. I will try and keep it short and sweet. I am a bit of a waffler, but I think in terms of COP26, it is a moment, and it's a really important moment. and all of the kind of global attention will be on Glasgow for that period of time. But I think the legacy is so important, and I've been working with Jenni and a few others, colleagues from Education Scotland, to try and pull together some national organisations and shape our work moving forward. And at every one of those meetings, we've been talking about the legacy and how we shape that. And that's something I'd be keen to open up to others who have attended today and presented today, is to get involved in those open forum meetings so that we can shape the legacy ourselves, and use the momentum that we've gained so far to push that legacy forward. Thank you.
Amazing. And we'll skip, of course, Peter Higgins for this question. We'll go straight to Jenni, Snell. What do you think youth should do in order to go beyond COP26?
Yeah, thank you, Chifundo. Thank you for the introduction as well. And I think I would echo everything Jennifer and Julie have already said so far. I mean, ideally, a long-term legacy of COP26 is going to be a safe and habitable planet that's remained under 1.5 degrees global warming, and a fair and equitable society for the people on that. But I think specifically thinking about young people and youth work, I would love to see a legacy of COP26 that is similar to the Year of Young People in 2018. So I'd love to see more doors opened, more spaces created, and new pathways for young people to have a voice and participate in decision-making structures, and having the agency to take action, and ensuring that those doors remain open as we move forward. So as Julie just said, COP26 is really important. It's such a crucial decision-making conference, but it's really important that once that's over on the 13th of November, the doors for young people's voices to be included in future decision-making stay open and things don't return to normal.
Amazing. Young people, have observed that young people raised the voice. We saw the likes of Greta raising the voice. We saw even young leaders from 2050 climate group raising up their demands, raising up their voices. I'm sure that after COP26, it doesn't end there. They will walk the talk and do more to end this crisis. So this second question will go straight to Peter Higgins. This one is for you. You will start to answer it. I'm sure you observed what Greta Thunberg said. She said that Scotland is not indeed a world leader as far as fighting climate change is concerned. Now, of course, we have seen many criticism, many people criticized, but what do you think? Is the Scottish government doing enough to attain this weight to be called the world leader in as far as fighting climate crisis is concerned?
Okay, well, again, thanks from me for the opportunity. And I think the first thing I would say is never believe your own publicity. And of course, the Scottish government has fallen into a bit of a trap by stating an ambition, which has then kind of led to a claim. So you need to have evidence if you're going to make the claims. Now, Scotland certainly does have the potential to be a world leader, and in some ways it is. Certainly with regard to the worlds that I work in, mostly in education, it's got a leading role, and the same with huge targets there. And the proof of the pudding will be whether or not we actually, within the next, well, 8 years to 2030, and then another 5 years to 35, and then another 10 to 45, we actually meet the targets. And I think it's good to get a bit of a tell-in from Greta, because it makes you think, yeah, well, we don't really want that. We want her to think that we're doing the right things. I think there's also another thing that we should be looking at that is really to do with whether or not we reach our carbon targets. We actually should be looking at other countries that really are world leaders. And the one I'd like to mention is Tibet, which is actually carbon positive already. And we can do this partly through restoration of peatlands and through woodlands, and a just transition in society. So, and also the only thing what I will add is that relative to the rest of the UK, we have the potential in Scotland to do far more quickly, and we need to get on with it. Thank you.
Amazing. Julie, Greta also said that hope to win this war against climate change should also tar with action. It means government should walk the talk. Do you think the Scottish government is walking the talk to all the targets that they explained earlier, that Peter explained earlier, to say that Scottish government has made its target? Do you think the Scottish government is indeed walking the talk?
I think probably working for Education Scotland, it is very difficult to comment on Scottish government just in terms of kind of the political sphere that we all live in. And kind of just going back to what Peter was saying there about knowing the evidence, and I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough on the evidence to be able to comment. What I kind of could add in is a few of the projects I've been working on with a couple of colleagues in Education Scotland are around the countdown to COP, which have received really positive feedback. We've got a wait clip for the CLD sector to highlight resources, professional learning and key policies from Scottish Government to kind of filter that out to the CLD sector. I think sometimes we can be put off by wording around resources for teachers and things like that. So it's about kind of the inclusivity of resources. And my colleagues have worked on a primary and secondary offer as well. So what I can do is pop them into the chat. And if people have other resources or learning opportunities that they would like to filter back into the wakelet and those opportunities, I'd be happy to do that. So sorry, I didn't really answer that, but thank you.
All right, let's proceed with the next question.
Sorry, can I jump in?
Yeah, you can. You can come in, please.
Thank you. So from our perspective as a grassroots organisation, we were funded by the Scottish Government for the CCF project, so the Climate Challenge Fund. We received funding over another number of years, but unfortunately that was cut this year. So the fund no longer exists. So a number of organisations have now faced this funding crisis, basically. So we had launched a community fridge service. We had a lot of cycling activities. We were encouraging people to reduce their carbon emissions. So doing driving lessons so that they'd learn how to drive efficiently. So that whole fund has been cut now. So for the most vulnerable communities, Black and minority ethnic communities, that no longer exists. So in terms of Scottish Government planning and future planning, we don't feel that benefits the communities that we work with. So that's just from our kind of grassroots position.
All right, thank you. Although COP26 is happening in Glasgow, but the host country is UK, which has been accused of being climate hypocrisy for going ahead to develop a new heavy oil field. So my question now is the UK government doing enough in order to stop the crisis? The first one to answer this question will be Jen Snell.
Okay, thank you. So I think, so some of you might be aware that we hosted a youth climate hustings last year with partners from across the youth sector. And there was also political representation from all of Scotland's political parties. They are not UK, but Scotland. And I think one thing that came out of that event was that decision makers and policymakers and politicians need to be meaningfully listening to young people and acting on what they are saying regarding the climate emergency. And it was raised within that event that the young people in Scotland don't agree that decision makers have done enough. They don't agree that decision makers have done what is necessary to combat the climate emergency. And they feel really frustrated that they're not being listened to in a kind of meaningful way. So I think when we listen to young people in Scotland at events like that, and also across the globe, that message is echoed, and it comes through really clear that we are rapidly running out of time to reduce the current and the future impacts of climate change. And young people don't think that any government can really be afforded to making decisions that put profit before people and planet. So I suppose from a youth work perspective, we need to be making sure that young people are able to share those concerns with decision makers and are able to be listened to and acted upon in decision making positions as well. So yeah.
All right, I think I've grasped something from your elaboration. Peter, do you think UK government is doing enough in order to meet Sustainable Goal Development number 13, which calls for an urgent action towards climate change? Is it doing enough, considering the fact that the world has stormed it with heavy storms, that there are hypocrites with the new heavy crowd oil field that they've been building? Are they doing enough?
I like the fact that you give me all the heavy political questions. Keep them coming, because excuse me, I'm up in the Cairngorms at the moment, so they can't find me anyway. Excuse me. There is a very straight answer to this. There are double standards. It's quite clear that you can't continue to exploit fossil fuels at the same time as you're heading towards a zero emissions policy. So there's no debate about that. The issue is, what responsibility do we take for the fact that the government is doing this? The UK government is elected, and so we're all collectively responsible. None of you, I guess, voted for them, and I'm not going to tell you which way I voted. You can probably guess, but actually, collectively as a nation, we have elected a government that is prepared to do the things that it's doing now. So I think I'm much more interested, rather than kind of blaming the UK government for things, to think what we can do in Scotland. And we've had a chat about that already. And I think we need to get our own house in order and do as much as we can here as we possibly can. And we need to engage all sectors of society, not just young people, in that process. And fundamental to sustainability is democracy, a proper, effective democracy. And that exists not, and it isn't just the government, it's the organs of the media, etc., big capital. These are the areas we need to educate young people about, so that they use their votes and they use their decision making effectively in order to bring about a coherent view of what sustainability might mean and how they're prepared to support it. Thank you.
It seems you're indeed enjoying the political questions that have been posed to you. Thank you very much. I did my own research as well, and I'll have to read this one loud so that you should grab something. After that, I'll ask the question. The Scottish Household Survey indicates that 84% of the Scottish public are concerned about climate change, and that concern is the highest among young people. 96% of those aged between 16 to 24. Now, here's my question. What can you of the race and take action? Sustainable Goal Development number 13, of course, which calls for an urgent action. So the first one to take this question will be Judy.
Thank you. I lost you for a second there, but hopefully got the gist of the question around the results of the Scottish Household Survey. And I think for me, something that youth work in the CLD sector do so well is we give a platform for young people to express how they feel in that kind of democratic fashion. And I think when we're talking about engaging with young people who are maybe not currently engaged in climate change work and learning for sustainability, it's something that youth work does so well, is that gives those underserved communities a voice. And for me, that's the important part of kind of promoting social justice, is allowing young people to lead the way and tell their story of how climate change is affecting them and impacting on them. And I think in terms of young people who aren't currently engaged, it is something that youth work do so well, is engage with young people and allow them that platform to have their voice. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, Jenny, would you wish to take that question?
I might pass it to Jennifer just for this one, and I can come in after Jennifer if there's time, but I'm just aware that you've not had a chance to speak for a while, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. I felt like I speak a lot. And also, can I apologize for all the boxes and things behind me? So in terms of engaging with underserved communities, we feel that's really important. But we also think that there are a number of factors that need to be taken into account. So for example, yesterday when we held our workshop on climate justice, we did talk about anti-racism education and how important it is within organizations for young people to see themselves reflected and represented. So Black and minority ethnic people can share their voices, especially for young people that are suffering from anxiety and stress related to the climate crisis. But yeah, we as an organization, we just try to offer as many outdoor learning opportunities as possible as well to combat some of those anxieties that young people are having. So in terms of like low intensity anxiety management, and just thinking of other ways to engage with young people that maybe even have never had those conversations before. So yeah, so that's me. Thank you. Sorry about the noise as well.
Thank you. Jenny, would you like to take that as well?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jennifer. So I think for me, I've been reflecting over the past 2 days of the conference, and a kind of key theme that's ran through all the kind of presentations and the workshops has been the need for a human rights and a social justice approach when we're thinking about climate emergency and climate change. And for me, I think that's exactly the space that youth workers can be making a massive difference in, and they are already making a massive difference in. I think, as it's already been mentioned, youth workers are often working with young people who otherwise wouldn't be engaged in this space, and those are the young people that are likely to be experiencing the most harshest kind of impacts from climate change in the future as well. So as youth workers, we have a bit of a responsibility to those young people to make sure that they're well informed, that they understand the climate emergency and feel equipped to deal with the climate emergency and build resilience and adaptation plans, that they have the skills to take action at whatever kind of level they're at on their journey in terms of participation, and that they have the confidence to have a voice in decision making as well. And I think that could be decision making at a local level or a national level or even internationally, and even I suppose in the house as well, you know, like family and friends, having the skills and confidence to have those conversations and that dialogue and discourse with their peers and their friends. So I think young people can be really supported by youth workers from where they're at on their journey, and connect in with global issues such as the climate crisis, which might feel really far away and unachievable at times, but we can kind of navigate that space to make it more relatable and personal and bring it down to that local level that means that young people can really connect with it. And I think the Sustainable Development Goals are a really great framework that can help with that, and learning for sustainability more broadly, and global citizenship as well. So ScotDec and the other development education centres and Learning for Sustainability Scotland have great resources that are a great starting point for those conversations to take place.
Amazing. We are still talking about the young people, because we know that this is the last generation that is able to serve this world, because if they cannot do it now, we are doomed. This can be the last question if I will not get any from the audience. Let's talk about the youth space. Has it become more safe or too safe? What should be done for us, even the authorities, to move towards braver space where real transformative change can happen? What should we do to go an extra mile to create the safe space for young people who are in the fight against climate change and other issues concerning them that would make the world a better place? This one will go straight to Peter so that he should lay the foundation. He is more interested in political issues. Peter, can you take that, please?
I'll be as quick as I can because I could say a lot of stuff. I put something in the chat which says we can't allow ourselves the indulgence that we believe the problems of previous generations will be solved by future ones. And that, I think, is the starting point for me. There is a lot of pressure on young people at the moment, and the youth work sector, the education sector, and the whole of society, including parents, needs to recognize that we can't just put more and more weight on young people's shoulders. So we need to engage young people. We need to encourage them. We need to make sure that we support them in being hopeful. And there is hope out there because the relationship between climate change and biodiversity loss is a really strong one. So we need to be looking to enhance biodiversity, and that will help solve some of the climate change problems. So I'm trying to suggest that there are positive messages, and lots of jobs and lots of opportunities are going to come down the line that way. But fundamentally, I think we have become a bit too safe because we think about all the little things we can do, and that's important. But underpinning all of this has to be a nation which is willing to engage in the processes that bring about change. That is fundamental change across a whole range of different areas. And we need to both address that so that we can transform our thinking and transform our society, and try to protect and engage people and make sure that they're involved in doing something positive. I always feel better when I've done something rather than just talked about it. I think I've said enough.
Thank you, Peter. Jury, can you take it?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I will equally try not to ramble on. For me, there's kind of a few points in this question. I don't think that youth work has become safe, but I think we've all been affected by the pandemic in the last 18 months in massive, huge ways. Every service has been affected differently, and every individual person in their own lives has been affected differently. I know myself, I went from a post that was based in a busy secondary school where, as part of COVID response, we were out delivering food parcels and working in the childcare hubs, to coming into this new post with Education Scotland, where you're then working remotely. And I think everybody has been impacted by the pandemic, and if anyone has come out of this absolutely unscathed with their full service still up and running, then that's incredible. But I think we have all been impacted. So now is probably a good time to look to the future. And I was reading through the Mooc this morning, which is from the University of Edinburgh, and it's launched this week, and it might be something that people are interested in participating in. And there was a quote on page 3. So I was just getting started. It's running for the next 5 weeks. And there was a quote on page 3 from Gloria Anzaldúa. And she said, "When you relate to others, not as parts, problems, or useful commodities, but from a connectionist view, compassion triggers transformation." And for me, that is something that I think CLD and youth work, the whole sector, we are so compassionate, and we can trigger that transformation moving forward. So I'll stop now. Thank you.
Jennifer Barr, can you take it?
Yep. Our young people were invited to take part in the Mooc. So in terms of like the video content, you'll see some of the young people speaking about their journey. And for us, definitely, it's we feel we're so lucky to be within youth work. We've got so much flexibility. We can be so reactive, and we can also, you know, we can make real change with the young people, obviously with them leading. So I think we are really, we're in such a unique position, and hopefully we can use that to create new conversations, but just ensuring that young people lead the way, and that we, you know, we're open to receiving that information. So, so if we can share details of the Mooc, that'd be brilliant.
All right, now to wrap up what we have been discussing. I've been following the Prime Minister, Johnson Bolis. He once said that he called the young generation, even the old generation, asking them, grow up, let's tackle climate crisis. Now, I want all the panelists to make their call. That was a call from Bolis. Now, let us hear your call to young people, even the whole world at large. I'll start with Peter.
Could you go to somebody else, Chifundo? I was just busy putting the Mooc links in.
All right, Julie, can you take it up?
Thank you. Yeah, my call would just be to continue letting young people lead the way. They will carve out the correct path for us to take and moving forward.
Powerful. Jennifer, what's your call?
My call is a call for inclusion, meaningful representation, and a step away from tokenism.
Amazing. Jenny, your call?
My call would be to not be afraid to be bold and brave. I think it's in our DNA as youth workers, echoing both what Gillian and Jennifer said as well, and to create lasting system change beyond COP26. That would be my call. I think youth workers have it in them to do it.
The last one to submit the call will be Peter. What is your call to young generation, even go beyond to make your call to the world at large? We cannot hear you, Peter. Can you unmute your mic?
Yeah. Ah, dear, I'm useless. The first one is that to remember isn't all about climate, that actually the SDGs are there for a reason, the Sustainable Development Goals, they're an integrated package, and we need to work on all of them at the same time, particularly biodiversity and climate together, as I said. And I think that's the second one, is to not allow older generations to feel that they're devoid of responsibility here, that actually you need to make sure you hold everybody to account. And that certainly is the case of politicians. And my final point would be Margaret Mead's, which is never doubt that a small group of committed individuals can make a difference. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has, because if we are those people, we can make a difference.
Thank you very much. And that is it all from our panelists. To look at the time, it is indeed of essence. I have to hand it back. I was the host, the moderator, Chifundo Zingunde, all the way from Malawi. People might say, what are you doing in order to fight global crisis? I'm working on advocacy, and I'm working on producing the second volume of this magazine. So yes, I'm doing something because we are the last generation to tackle this challenge. So over to you, Emily. Thank you for being a wonderful audience, and I had a wonderful panelist. Bye-bye.